Good afternoon. Welcome to UK 5G TV. I'm Richard Foggy. 5G is coming, but what does this mean for industry? And particularly, what does it mean to transport and logistics? In the studio with me today, we've got Louise Lancaster from the Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, Catherine Gull from UK Broadband, and Tim Lane from Network Rail Telecom. But before we get started, and we'll be looking for your input, taking your questions, we're going to have a bit of a scene setter from David Wells, the chairman of the FTA.
Good morning. I am delighted to be part of this 5G discussion on how the UK freight and logistics industries could benefit from new ways of working that 5G can make possible. Apologies that I cannot be with you in person. I'm David Wells, Chief Executive of FTA. For those of you who don't know us, FTA is the only business group in the UK which represents all of logistics, with members from the road, rail, sea and air industries, as well as buyers of freight services. Organisations like retailers and manufacturers whose businesses depend on the efficient movement of goods. FTA supports, shapes and stands up for safe and efficient logistics, representing the views of our 17,000 members and championing the industry with government and the media, generating significant coverage and achieving amazing results for our members. Logistics directly impacts over 7 million people in the UK who are employed in making, selling and moving the goods that affect everyone everywhere. It contributes 32% to the UK's GVA. It's a big deal. There is a huge amount of change currently taking place across the economy, which is having a direct impact on the world of logistics. Disruptors like Brexit and new technology are changing the way we work. It's clear that increased use of technology and the capabilities promised by 5G may help to address the issues faced by the sector and answer the questions posed by these developments. The world around us is changing, and changing fast, nowhere more so than in the logistics sector. These changes are being driven by the need to communicate effectively between consumers, businesses, and even vehicles and different modes of transport. They are also driven by political forces across continents. And then, of course, there's blockchain, which requires increased connectivity and real-time data exchange between distributed ledgers. What links these changes is the need to communicate more effectively, and 5G could be the solution which powers the next generation of logistics operators. At the moment, it's probably fair to say that the logistics sector lags behind other areas of the economy in the use of technology. Many of the systems in use today are based on 30-year-old designs or even older. Innovation in the sector is driven by compliance rather than efficiency, and there is still a reliance on paper-based systems across the sector. There is data in abundance, but not enough processing capability or understanding to make effective use of it. And while digital systems are starting to be introduced in elements like the driver's daily walk-around check, the lack of bandwidth available to logistics businesses often means little happens in real time. Things need to change. Brexit could be the single biggest disruptor to our industry in our lifetimes. The EU is the UK's biggest trading partner, accounting for 43% of UK exports and 53% of imports. Currently, vehicles move freely to and fro between the UK and the continent every day. Our busiest port, Dover, handles up to 10,000 trucks every day with minimal delays thanks to the Common Transit Convention, or CTC. Without the CTC's guarantee, each truck will have to be checked at the border. And when you consider that a 2-minute delay on one truck at Dover would cause a 17-mile queue on both sides of the channel, as well as leaving ships unable to dock, you can see that this is a problem that needs a solution. No decisions have yet been made on customs and excise agreements. the location of where checks should be made on cargoes, or where and how duties should be paid, and the technology required does not yet exist to support any of this. 5G could provide the critical piece of the jigsaw puzzle, even though it will not be ready for March 2019. Without a solution that allows the UK to retain the frictionless movement of goods with minimal delays, in the long term we could be facing the slower movement of goods and disruption of the supply chain, and ultimately product shortages, a downturn in manufacturing and a slowdown in the UK economy. How can 5G help? Trucks are becoming mobile data platforms with many different ways to communicate. There is now the real chance to collect data 24/7 about the vehicle and the operator. And 5G will enable real-time two-way communication to share that information and help to improve the efficiency of the transport operation. And how can better communications benefit operators? Real-time communications will mean instant decision-making is possible, combined with the use of artificial intelligence. For example, improved connectivity via 5G will help drivers and managers exchange information about real-time situations, assess the onboard situation, and create a solution which is cost-effective, timely and efficient. Much has been said about the concept of platooning, linking several vehicles autonomously via communications platforms. There are undoubtedly potential fuel savings and operational efficiencies to be made, providing real-time vehicle-to-vehicle communications are unbroken. 5G could provide the effective time-critical exchange of information needed to make platooning a reality. Fully autonomous vehicles are still some years away, but an efficient 5G network would provide a vital real-time communications platform to support any system. To work efficiently, autonomous vehicles will need up-to-the-minute sight of traffic and safety management information, up-to-the-minute news on issues affecting the road network, weather updates and route planning solutions. Operators and customers will require regular progress updates on deliveries and vehicle locations, which a robust 5G network could provide. In summary, there are big changes happening across the logistics sector, and the people and assets across the industry will be critical in making these a reality. 5G is the technology which should underpin all the new developments to support and help evolve the logistics industry of the future. FTA remains committed to ensuring that the sector continues to innovate in this way. I couldn't leave you without a gentle plug for FTA's own glimpse into the future. Our first Future Logistics Expo will take place on Wednesday the 14th of November at the Warwick Exhibition Centre. Bringing together leaders across the logistics industry to examine the future of the sector, the event will feature 30 experts across 3 theatres. Discussions will include managing people in a connected world, developing strategies to optimise operations, and the tools and technologies and future of one of the UK's most important sectors. For more information, please visit our website www.fta.co.uk/FLC. That's www.fta.co.uk/FLC. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks for that input, David. Well, a couple of clear takeaways there. 34% GVA in the UK, and a 2-minute delay equates to a 17-mile tailback. So, fortunately, the government is engaged in doing something about this. Delighted to have with us in the studio Louise Lancaster, Regulatory and Policy Lead of the 5G Testbeds and Trials programme. So what are you going to do about it then?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Louise Lancaster. I work for the 5G Testbeds and Trials programme within government, which is run by the Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. And today I'm going to give you a quick introduction to the programme and explain why we think there might be benefits from some sector-specific testbeds and trials. So what is 5G? The most important thing to note is that it's more than just another G. All of the mobile network evolutions so far have really concentrated mainly on consumer broadband services, and 5G has huge potential to bring advantages for the enterprise space for businesses. So this diagram, which was produced by the European Commission, demonstrates the three main arms of 5G. So at the top there, you'll see the enhanced mobile broadband, which is the mobile services that we're all familiar with in terms of providing access to video streamed content and so on, and in the future moving on to augmented reality and virtual reality. Although even those applications have applications in the business space, with augmented reality being a really useful potential tool for training within businesses. And in the bottom left-hand corner, massive machine types communication. So this is really the evolution of the Internet of Things. As we all know, in future, in fact, we're going to have more connected machines than connected humans. And 5G will really enable IoT to take off, and for millions and even billions of machines and sensors to communicate with each other. And in the bottom right-hand corner, ultra-reliable, low-latency communications. So low latency really means that data can be communicated virtually in real time, which will enable things like remote monitoring, real-time monitoring of devices. So our Testbeds and Trials program is really about, it aims to accelerate investment. 5G networks will no doubt come absent government intervention, but we want to make sure that the UK is leading in 5G network deployment. And part of that is about proving demand for these new use cases in order to encourage investment by de-risking those investments by industry. So we're really looking at trialing not only the technology, but the new business models that will help fund the network deployment. And so we want to encourage the new ecosystems to develop in terms of the new buyers and sellers. We want to encourage new entrants to the market, new forms of service provision, new service providers, self-deployed networks. So quite a disruptive space. The first thing the program did was fund some test networks based in 3 universities: University of Surrey, King's College London, and the University of Bristol. And each of these test networks specialises in slightly different aspects of 5G. So, for example, King's College London does a lot of work on so-called tactile internet, haptic technology, which enables touch, essentially, which could enable remote surgery in hospitals. The University of Bristol is looking at urban deployments and applications like tourism, for example. And the University of Surrey is really the leading research centre working with operators and equipment vendors. So we then launched a competition for some initial, relatively small-scale projects. And this map of the UK depicts those projects in the UK. And there are a variety of use cases and geographies. We have some rural projects focusing on things like providing connectivity to rural vets and broadcasting, radio broadcasting in remote areas. Smart tourism, so using augmented reality and virtual reality to enhance tourist destinations. providing wireless connectivity in homes to enable healthcare to be provided in homes. And there is a industry-based testbed in Worcester which is looking at things like preventative maintenance, how 5G networks can enable real-time monitoring of machine tools to prevent, to improve efficiency and prevent downtime, and thus improve productivity. We recently launched a competition for a large-scale urban project, which will not only look at 5G network deployment at scale, but will also look at how a city uses that connectivity, and how the citizens of the city can use that connectivity, and importantly, how the data generated on that network can be used by the citizens and by the local authority. And we are expecting to announce the location of that project towards the end of the summer. So, future projects. So we think that there could be considerable benefit in investing in specific sectors. And transport and logistics sector has been identified as a possible sector for that. Accenture have predicted that by 2030, the industrial Internet of Things could be worth around £400 billion to the UK economy. And we think that investment and demand can be stimulated through demonstrating use cases and developing 5G technology in certain key locations that are relevant to those sectors. So if we decide to do this, this could take the form of a competition in which we would be looking for a consortia to bid together with a strong industry component. And we would likely invite bids for testbed facilities that would run for a multi-year period. So really what we're interested in hearing from you all is, what are your challenges? What could you do if you had dedicated connectivity with high reliability, high performance? What should the testbed look like? Would it be indoors? Would it be outdoors? In the transport and logistics sector, there's perhaps scope for doing something around a port, a seaport or an airport, maybe including a main highway, out of that area, to maybe including a freight storage area. So what would be useful to you? Equally, there could be something around a warehouse, deliveries. We could be talking, drone highways for delivering out of warehouses. So we're really looking to you for inspiration as to how we could help.
Thanks, Louise. That's quite a significant investment from government, it's fair to say. But I suppose whether there's going to be a competition or call around this depends in large part on how industry is prepared to engage, and if it can articulate those problems, if we can see where 5G could be applied to reduce some of those pain points and fundamentally do something for the UK economy. Absolutely, absolutely. We're looking to boost productivity, increase efficiency, and if we can see how that can be done, then that's something that we might seek to help fund. This is a fundamental plank of the government's digital strategy. Absolutely, absolutely. The programme is linked very closely to our industrial strategy, to our future communications strategy, and there's a lot of cross-fertilisation between the two. We look to the programme to help demonstrate ideas that are put forward in our strategy documents. Well, there's the challenge to you, industry. What problems have you got? How might 5G fix those? And would you care to share those insights with DCMS, please? We will be following up to capture those from you. Moving on to our next panellist, Catherine Gull from UK Broadband. Now, you've been doing some work with ports, I
Yes.
think. Okay, and
Yes.
an LTE, not going into the technicalities.
No,
long-term
not going
evolution,
to do that.
But basically, you do funky telecoms stuff with
Yes.
port infrastructure.
Exactly. It's really exciting.
Right.
So I'm Catherine Gull, and I'm the head of business development for UK Broadband. And UK Broadband is a wholly owned subsidiary today of 3UK. And I've been asked to come to talk to you about practical uses for industry for 5G, based on the work that we've already been doing with 4G, advanced 4G in different places, such as the largest and busiest port in the container port in the UK, as well as the largest airport in the UK. So I'm just going to talk briefly about what are the different aspects of transport that 5G and actually our 4G advanced that we've been working on can address. And as you see there, we've got ports, we've got rail, airports, and also industry. And so all those things come together to actually make the logistics industry in the UK and to make the UK work. The way that we look at what we do in ports and airports is we help to keep them running. So going on to a use case for a port, and I'll speak a bit about ports and throw in a little bit about what we do in airports there. So today we have deployed a private 4G, advanced 4G LTE network at ports and airports in the UK, of which one of them is the largest and busiest port in the UK. Their challenge was to enable workforce management. And if you know, across a very large and changing atmosphere or location, so their campus, and we call it a campus, that's our vernacular, is constantly changing. As you know, with a port, you've got container piles that make almost like buildings in one area, and a day later, those are gone and they've put up another container pile in a different area. So it's a very dynamic atmosphere. So how do you keep everybody connected, all of the aspects of the port to enable the movement of containers and people? How do you keep them connected? So what we've deployed is an advanced form of 4G that was essentially a private 4G LTE network, and that enables all of the different aspects that keep their port working and the containers moving on and off vessels and on and off rail and on and off lorries working. So some aspects and some practical uses that we have found and that we anticipate will be part of Louise's triangle, which is for 5G, ultra reliable and low latency aspect of 5G. Which is enabled via something called network splicing. And in 5G, we have an opportunity to kind of take a part of the 5G spectrum off, dedicate it to a certain location or a certain aspect of work, and enable reliable working. In our port case, as an example, we are able to offer SLAs and super reliability, and we do that in a number of ways. So let me talk a bit about applications. So from an application perspective, on a port today or an airport, going forward for 4G or 5G, we enable, as I spoke about, workforce management. And that is generally communicating either on a tablet or a laptop directions on what to do next, where to go, what to pick up, where to put it, and then what to go next, where to go next from there. Everything from the key crane, remote key crane control, to a key crane driver, to a lorry driver, what to do. and enable it for all the people who are working on the port, and then also people who come onto the port to work for a short period of time. This also, having a 5G network, because it is reliable, or a 4G network, it's reliable, it is ubiquitous in the area, and the radio can be controlled for a specific area. You can enable the on-campus location, remote locations. As an example, in an airport, if you put up a temporary housing area, whether it's an office, you can enable that to connect to the rest of the airport LAN. Another area are dash cams, and being able to enable a dash cam on any vehicle, either on a port or an airport, and to be able to see into what's going on there. In the case of the airport, they have created essentially a mobile Wi-Fi hub in different vehicles that they have, essentially creating a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot that connects into their corporate LAN. So anyone standing inside or near that particular vehicle, whether it's in the middle of the airport apron, on the edges, can connect into the airport LAN. The other thing is controlling robotics. With 4G, it works. With 5G, it's even better, because the latency is super low and it is super reliable. So being able to control everything from a driverless vehicle to a robotics that maybe moves a airplane from one place to another, or a key crane that's controlled remotely. Also, on-site vehicle tracking. I have a list of use cases that are immense. I hope that you have some questions for me so we can discuss some of those.
Thanks, Catherine. What I'm getting there is that 5G, it's not just 25% bigger than 4G. There's, and never mind how it works, but there's sophistication in the networks behind it that enable you to do different things at different times in different places. So it does enable horses for courses for when you're shifting your data around, controlling robots, or whatever you can dream up, basically, I think.
Exactly. I think it's a real disruptor. As Louise said, it's just not another G. It's something that is really exciting. It can be a game changer for a business, especially a business that has a large campus where they need to control things that are going on, whether it's an airport or a port or warehousing. And logistics is perfect. It's absolutely perfect for this application.
Thank you kindly. Right, well, we've done trucks and we've done airports and seaports. I suppose the bit that joins them in the middle, maybe, certainly one of the important modes, Tim Lane from Network Rail Telecom. You tell us a little bit about what you're up to in this 5G space.
Thank you, Richard. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tim Lane from Network Rail Telecom. I lead future technical strategy and innovation in Network Rail Telecom. Network Rail Telecom is the in-house telecoms provider and service operator within Network Rail. Network Rail operates the UK's mainline rail infrastructure. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the role of 5G in the railway of the future. But sometimes it happens just to start with a few figures to give an idea of what we're talking about. On our infrastructure, we carry nearly 5 million passenger journeys a year, and that's a figure that's rising 6% year on year and is set to continue doing that. Of that, 50% of those journeys start or end at one of 18 stations which are directly managed by Network Rail. It's an expensive operation to deliver £20 million per day to operate and to renew that infrastructure that supports the train running, and almost as much again to deliver those upgrades that give the increases in capacity. Catherine talked about freight, and railway is an important factor in linking together freight terminals. We take the equivalent of 7.6 million lorry loads of freight per year off the roads and onto the railway. Railways operating such a big infrastructure has its human angle as well, and I think as technology has a part to play in helping us safeguard the lives of people that come onto the railway. A little bit about the infrastructure, 30,000 kilometres of track, almost half of that electrified in some way or other. Bridges and viaducts, I think they're just the Network Rail ones, not the bits of road, etc., that travels over us. And they're all assets that need to be managed in such that they can deliver their purpose safely. 650 tunnels, that's 1% of the infrastructure which is underground, which presents a lot of interesting challenges both for connectivity and for management of the infrastructure. And approximately a quarter of our infrastructure, the train is below ground level in some form in a cutting, and it's not surprising really in our green, pleasant and curvy land. 2,500 stations, I mentioned the 18 where 50% of all passenger journeys start and end. When I started this slide a number of years ago, there were a lot more control locations, signal boxes as you might refer to them. We're down to about 600 now. The long-term journey is to take those to 11 route operating centres. There's a lot of technology required to do that over a lot of years. And level crossings, another place where we meet the public. Of those 6,000 crossings, only about 1,200 of those have some form of technology. Many of them you may only recognise as a farmer's gate or a footpath, but they all have issues about interacting with the public, again, where technology can play its place. And then there's 38,000 employees and 200,000 industry peoples around the infrastructure in some way, and they all have needs, they all have safety to be managed. Again, technology has a place to play in those areas. So in terms of delivering that enhancement in capacity, it's not just about doing things more efficiently. We're really going to have to make some revolutionary changes in rail. We've seen that in airports that have put management systems in to get more capacity out of existing runways. And we can't keep building railway. We need to find ways of getting more efficiency out of ours. And I've described in this slide what I've described revolutionary initiatives. I actually stole the term revolutionary initiatives from our Chief Executive, Mark Hahn, who's retiring this year. The first one is intelligent operations, and I think this is how we get the 6% year on year and more. This is how we deliver more train paths reliably and flexibly. And the second one is intelligent infrastructure. This is how we use data and communications to get more reliability and predictability out of that infrastructure such that extra capacity can be delivered reliably. I think the term end state has gone out of fashion, but a long-term state, if we think about a railway that's self-operating, self-managing and self-healing, it wouldn't do us too far wrong to think in terms of the journey that technology needs to take us, and I think 5G has got a big role to play in that. The UIC, the International Union of Railways, has a group called FRMCS, Future Rail Mobile Communication System, and they focused on really a journey about what replaces GSMR, the 2G operational comms system that serves railways well today. In addition to that, the Europe's Horizon 2020 programme has funded something called Shift to Rail, a programme that involves both the vendor industry and railways in facing future challenges and how we deal with those. And there is a future connected railway piece in there that looks at connected telecoms for the railway of the future. Those two pieces of work are coming closely together, but the answer is definitely 5G. This is a useful diagram that came out of the Shift to Rail work. It's actually part of the user and system requirement specification that's been produced by the Shift to Rail group, and it's quite a useful graphic which is contained within the document. I'd urge you to look at the document, and hopefully Richard can put a link on the website to point you at that, but it gives a good indication of the many and varied communication cases within rail. Actually, when you distill all those down, you get down to 4 umbrella use cases, which I've tried to summarise on the slide. I think the first one most people will recognise is the Internet of Things. How do you use lots of sensors to create data? But I think there's more to this. It's more about, as well, having a data marketplace, a place where an ecosystem, a place where people can share data, because data has a fractional cost of production. The idea of open data is not necessarily free data, and the need to monetize a system that can both create data and create information is very important. And I think that includes having processing, edge processing in a network, perhaps as far down as the trackside. The second one is connected operations. In today's world, that's GSMR, it's ETCS, in-cab signalling. But for the future, that's probably intelligent level crossings, automatic train operation, train convoying, etc. The third one, very important to government, connected passengers. That's about the productivity and benefit of UK. It's relative competitive state against Europe, and that's about getting big bandwidth to trains. The final one, connected intervention. For me, this is the most important one. This is about getting people off the railway and getting more availability out of the railway. So this is the connected drones, the connected robots, and ultimately autonomy, those devices doing things on the railway that don't require people to intervene. We're helping government in trying to move this forward, or they're helping us as well. DCMS have funded some enhancements at Network Rail's test track, known as Rail Innovation and Development Centre, RIDC Melton in the Midlands, and it gives us a 20-kilometre test track, which has been around for about 50 years, testing trains and other things. At the top of the diagram there is our 5G Innovation Testbed brochure, which I think, again, Richard can probably supply a copy of if people are interested in it, and a link to Network Rail's RIDC website. What this is going to give us is 30 or more masts, tunnel mounting points on this infrastructure, and it's really a blank canvas. It's not intended to bring technology. The development brings masts and attachment points, optical fibre and power supplies to allow other parties to conduct 5G testing with or without trains. And yes, we're also addressing access to trains, both those who are testing trains on site, beneficial usage of that, and working towards a dedicated test train to support innovators. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you kindly, Tim. Indeed, and I'll be delighted to share the information links, provided you let me have a go on your 5G train set. That looks like a useful facility.
Your invite is guaranteed.
Thank you, sir. Right, we'd like to open this up to you now. You've had the lowdown on what's going on from government. You've had some context provided by the industry and sector experts. So we're more than happy to entertain your questions. Just enter those in the chat and we'll keep a look at them on this end and answer them. Any we don't have time to get round to, never mind, we'll follow up as UK 5G. All questions will be answered in the fullness of time. While the guys and gals are thinking about that, immediate question comes to mind, hang on, where's this 5G then? If you want people to start experimenting with 5G, but it's not arrived yet, so do you have the relationships with the MNOs, the vendors and what have you to get access to the 5G technology?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a combination of using advanced 4G as a proxy to some extent if the 5G technology isn't developed yet. But having said that, it's coming on all the time. So actually, by the time we launch new projects, we might be seeing more and more 5G. Already the first of the 5G standards has been set. Yeah. The next one, I think, this year sometime for 5G new radio. So we're getting there in the technology. We have pre-commercial equipment available. Yes, we do have relationships and constant engagement with all aspects of the industry, from the equipment vendors to the operators to new, potential new entrant operators and as well. So that's very much bringing that whole ecosystem together is very much part of the programme's work.
Okay, and Catherine, I can see you agreeing vigorously there. So yeah, 5G is coming. We also hear about 4.5G and things like this. So there's the tech there to demonstrate this type of thing.
By the time after this conference today, by the time we would all be ready, it will be there. So we are all working with the vendors, with different MNOs, with government, with different locations on trialing and enabling 5G. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Okie dokie. And so thank you. We've got some specific ones coming in. So, Catherine, this is a little geeky, if you pardon it, but what spectrum do you use for the sort of the port infrastructure? So this is just your common or garden 4G, I take it.
Yes, but we use the 3.4 to 3.6 spectrum, which is called band 42-43.
That's very helpful. Thank you. I hope that answered your question there.
And that spectrum is 4G today, and it is 5G will be 5G going forward.
I think it's a good point in the question. I guess a more generic way of putting that question is what spectrum is appropriate and where will it come from? And that's one of the things, we recently published a Future Telecoms Infrastructure Review. And one of the things we talk about in that is access to spectrum and looking at alternative methods of authorization, alternative ways in which to get spectrum out to the users who need it and the service providers who need it. So that's something that's, and that work is intrinsically linked with the work of the programme. Right. So spectrum is a very important component. And the applications that rely on high bandwidths require higher frequency spectrum than has traditionally been used in mobile networks. So we're looking at how to incorporate that into the project. Okay.
And indeed, Ofcom has been quite sporting in this regard, not only within sort of the 5G space, but other TV white space, ultra narrow band, and things like this. Yep. They've basically said, oh yeah, go and have a play.
Yes, they have
opened up spectrum that otherwise you wouldn't get your hands on. Ofcom
have made spectrum available to some of our phase 1 projects on a test and development or trial and innovation basis, so test licenses essentially. So yes, we work closely with Ofcom.
Right. And Catherine, aside from the technicals, and this is a piece of string question, but can you give a sort of a guesstimate approximation? What's the sort of bottom line contribution that the use of contemporary comms could give to a port operation in terms of productivity gain, efficiency savings? Sorry, that's a bit of a googly.
Yeah, so efficiency and reliability are huge. So every 30 seconds that, let's say, a lorry driver who's moving a container from one place to another, every 30 seconds where he does not know where to go, he or she does not know where to go next, is a huge impact on the productivity of the port. Right. So I'm using 30 seconds as an arbitrary number, but I'm also saying if the connectivity is slow or if they find themselves in a location that doesn't have connectivity because it's not ubiquitous and designed to be everywhere that they go, that has a knock-on effect on how quickly a port, or an airport for that matter, can turn things around.
Right. Okay. Tim, got a question here, and it comes back to your train set, your 5G train set. Who can play with that then? I mean,
this is referring to the test facility.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, it's genuinely open to all. There is a link which I've given to you, Rishi, which you'll better put on the website again, which takes you to the Network Rail's RIDC website. We will use that as our shop front for access. We can do a certain amount of access today. We have one innovator on site who's already doing 5G type technology at the test track. When the enhancements are in place, build is commencing. We expect very early availability of the enhancements towards the end of this calendar year, substantial completion early 2019, and that will be an open facility. Network Rail will need to cover its costs in terms of giving access, but it is an open not-for-profit facility.
Excellent indeed. And another one here, I don't know, might have a volunteer for you. You mentioned a connected operations use case. Have you got a group working that up?
So that is Future Rail Mobile Communication Systems, the FRMCS group in UIC. They are primarily focused on that, what replaces GSMR. There are other work groups within, particularly the Digital Railways project or Digital Railway programme within Network Rail, who are looking at things like automatic train operation. which indeed is one of the constituents of Thameslink.
Okay, thank you. Right. Indeed. Thank you kindly. This one was bound to come up. What are the security challenges involved around the use of this technology, 5G?
So that's a really good question. I think unlike Wi-Fi and other kinds of connectivity, 5G, as in 4G, is bound by 3GPP standards, and those standards offer the highest level of security. So it's essentially, if you would deploy this at your campus location, it's like deploying a mobile network. You manage the physical security because it is in your location, but it is the highest level of security possible. If they want more details, I'm sure I can direct you to 3GPP.
Okay. And the 3GPP, that's
It's an international
governing body. Okay.
Yeah, it's an international governing body. So you will know whether or not a service, so all of the mobile services essentially are according to 3GPP standards. There are things that are pre-3GPP, which are probably just as secure, but that's essentially the stamp of approval.
Okay, so in India, I see a lot of reference to 3GPP. They've effectively got the roadmap, if you will, for the rollout of 5G and further.
Exactly.
And I think part of the standards they have it, that 5G is secure by design, so they have got security really sort of built in from the start. One of our phase 1 projects, the Worcester project, as well as looking at things like predictive maintenance, it is looking at the security aspect in terms of, its hackability, if you like. The DCMS program also has a sort of separate work stream looking at security issues in relation to 5G. So it's something that we're very conscious of.
Okay, thank you kindly. Indeed, we've got one coming here. What are the main advantages of 5G IoT solutions over LoRaWAN or Sigfox, spread spectrum or narrowband? I mean, my understanding is that 5G kind of incorporates and can accommodate those wireless transports as well.
5G is really a network of networks.
Network of networks.
And the vision is that users move seamlessly between networks, off Wi-Fi onto 5G, onto another kind of. But one of the benefits is that people don't have to. I mean, I understand, for example, the wireless network in the Ocado warehouse is essentially a bespoke wireless technology. I mean, great.
You can do
but
that.
Yes, exactly. but it's fairly bespoke. So this is more of a standardized, ubiquitous kind of a network. But
yeah, no, I totally agree there. It's designed to IoT if it's a moving IoT. So for the practicalities of a campus, most of those things would stay on the campus or around the campus where the network would be available. So Sigfox and LoRa, is it LoRa, right?
Yeah.
It's also a great opportunity, and they are a good service. They are lower bandwidth, whereas 5G will be higher bandwidth. So the capabilities are going to be bigger. And so you can put cameras along with that IoT that you would have.
Indeed, and a fair point here. A lot of the future use cases under 5G can be delivered with 4G. So why is 5G needed?
So a lot of the business cases can be delivered with 4G. I think that the way that networks will go across the UK is they will, where there is 3G, they will may be putting 4G, but it may just jump right to 5G. Where the additional capability of 5G is, again, as Louise said, ultra low latency, super amount of bandwidth, and in that you can get a lot more for your money out of it.
Is it fair to hark back to when 4G arrived and it was described as long-term evolution? And really, this is part of an evolution. This is not a stop and start again like the 3G to 4G transition. This is, but we will look back when 5G is mature and go, yes, we've moved on.
Yeah.
Okay, righto. Now I know the answer to this one. I think this was directed to you, Louise. How many locations will be selected for the Urban Connected Communities project? One. There can be only one. Yes?
I'm loath to make any comment on that in advance of ministerial statements.
Righto. Watch this space, I think, for answers on that one.
Nice try, though.
All right. Okay. Right. Any more for any more?
Can I come back on the LoRaWAN
Of course you may do.
point? I'm interested in that one because we're trialling LoRaWAN at our test track at the moment with sensors, and I'm quite interested in what we're finding. When particularly Surrey 5G IC, when they started looking at 5G, they described a fabric, a way of connecting multiple technologies together. And certainly the discussions we've had is why couldn't LoRaWAN be a part of a 5G network as Wi-Fi could, as 4G could? You know, it's another means of communication, as could fixed comms. And I think technologies like LoRaWAN with those super low power sensors and battery powered devices, I think could have their places.
Indeed, certainly seen it applied well in agriculture,
Yes.
it's fair to say. I believe the Liverpool testbed, which is looking at health and social care, they make a lot of use of LoRaWAN technology for sort of ambient IoT capture. So
Possibly. They're also using 60 gigahertz spectrum, so
wow.
quite high bandwidth. So,
Absolutely. Literally both ends of the spectrum are born. So.
With an eye to opportunity, I'm mindful that agriculture is our biggest line-side neighbour. So,
that's a very good point, indeed. And you do kind of have trackside infrastructure stuff, like everywhere.
Yes.
That's interesting. Whoa, okay. Indeed, this is a good question here, and I guess it's kind of for Tim, and it's sort of how would the connectivity sort of business model shift between sort of onboard train Wi-Fi and a 5G environment? I think the answer to that one is it's all to play for, and there will be many and varied disruptors coming in, and all different types of business offer will be.
In my mind, a sliced service environment within the train could be a great enabler for business case and to allow both existing mobile service providers and other fixed service providers, new service providers, to deliver a presence inside a train and could potentially increase the cumulative value of that connection to the train.
That's a very good point. Again, we've got a bit of a geeky one here, so I'll pick on Catherine. Sorry, Catherine. You're kind of the closest thing to a geek. We've got a network slicing. Have you got a human type answer for what network slicing is, how it works?
So if you take a fixed line as an example, you can take a fixed line to your office and you can tunnel through that fixed line and dedicate a certain amount of that line to, let's say, the IT department and some of it to the sales department as an example. And so you've got essentially one delivery method and you logically divide it up.
Right, rather than physically. So
but it enables you to provide different service levels to different customers. So you could have one set of customers that are getting a sort of best effort service, and then you could have another set of customers that are getting a 5.9 service.
Exactly.
So it's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, and another one directed at Tim. So, you're going to come up with your own 5G equivalent of GSMR, or use a commercial provider?
The jury's out. The work that FRMCS are doing in the UIC has focused on a particular piece of spectrum, the same spectrum that's used for GSMR, which is a non-3GPP piece of spectrum in terms of mobile connectivity today. But there are a number of thoughts as to how you might do that, and you know, there is a huge amount of opportunity in 5G with sharing and slicing to share that. I think the criticality is for the service provider, particularly the radio access network, is to who is prepared to take the pain of supporting a critical national infrastructure, because the financial and reputational pain of failure could be considerable. So actually delivering the big bandwidth is almost the easy bit when you compare with the delivering the criticality, the mission criticality.
Okay, right. Which of course you can do over network slicing because it all goes down the one tube and whatever. But
You could or couldn't.
Okay.
The jury's out there.
right. Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Oh. So I have to look. I think by and large we're just about done. So thank you kindly for your questions. We will be following up. If this sort of thing interests you, then keep in touch. Keep tabs on UK 5G. As I say, we will be following up, and hopefully you'll continue with us on this journey. Thanks very much.